Hello, this is Kev.
And Lil. We're discussing relationships in all of its forms and everything in between.
We've been together close to 30 years. We've seen some things together and apart.
So if you want to laugh or need advice, come and spend some time with Kev and Lil. Have we met?
All right, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. I just wanted to say it's an honor to spend time with you, and you're brand new. If you're brand new, welcome. Welcome to Kev and Lil. Have we met? Today's episode is divorce, and we have a guest with us for, I guess, for anonymity. I would like to be
Anonymity?
Yes.
Well,
Let's
I mean,
say
it's up
our
to her. If
guest.
she wants to certainly give her name, we can just give her first name.
Do you want us to give your first name, or we could just use an initial? We could say D.
We'll go with D.
Okay,
D.
there you go.
Okay, so our guest is D, and she is going to be talking to us about divorce.
All right. I just want to preface that with saying how we know her. It's funny because she actually was one of my closest friends. She was married to a very close friend of mine. And he sort of well, let's just say he's not around anymore. But we kept in touch with her. They were actually the godparents of our younger son,
They
Xavier.
still are. Just
No, I'm
divorce.
saying they, but of course, she's still the godmother, of course. And but yeah, so we kept the better of the two, I guess.
Yeah.
And so I also want to say this just because Denise has been married twice, right? Um, the first divorce, which is to an old friend of mine, and she got divorced from him. What is it now? 12 years, you said? You told us?
14.
14 years. Excuse
Wow,
me.
it's been that long.
Excuse me. Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. And
Time
I just want to, and it was one statistic I wanted to mention, which was 70% of divorces over 40 are initiated by the woman, which is sort of funny because this was before you turned 40 when that happened. But yeah, all right. I mean, you could
Even
certainly
at her
tell.
age like that.
No, but like I was saying, she but yeah, you can certainly start telling your story about how what occurred during and why it finally ended.
So we were together from when I was 17 and he was 21, and we stayed together until I was 35. And
3:15 p.m.
Oh my God.
there
Unprofessionalism. I'm telling you, he
Sorry.
reeks of unprofessionalism.
Oh my gosh. I didn't even realize that was there. Sorry. Let's start
Let's
that.
put our phone
Well,
on
I'll edit that
airplane
out.
mode.
I'll edit that part out. Don't worry
Airplane
about it.
mode, your phone.
so
Yes.
we'll keep going. So
Yes, please.
we met, and I was very young. I was still in high school, and he obviously was not. And we dated for a long time when I was going to college. So it's one of those things that when you're 17, I don't think you're thinking about attributes of a partner, friendship, support, all those things, stability as you go on. You're thinking, this is fun. You're handsome. This is great. That's what a 17-year-old thinks of. And then as time goes on, you just kind of evolve and you stay together. And I graduated and I started my career, and we got married, and then we had a son. And I think as things started going on, what our issue really was is that he was a bit jealous, or I would say, use the word a little protective, is what I thought when I was young. I would say very jealous as I got older. And the real catalyst for it was I had a colleague that had worked with me, and we were working on a project for my graduate degree, and he had called to work on the project. And my ex asked him if he was effing his wife, which, just for the record, I've never kissed another boy from the time I was 17 till 35. So it was really in left field. And we tried to work on it, and he just was not willing to kind of work on it, go to therapy. And I was a mom. I was dealing with some health issues. I was getting my graduate degree. And I think what I decided was I need a partner, not a project. And in therapy, I didn't premeditate it. It just came up and I said, I'm just ready to move on.
How
Yeah.
long, if you don't mind me asking, how long from the point, like how long did it take you to decide, okay, I'm done?
We probably worked on things. I probably was done, and I think I read that a lot before he was done or aware. And I was one of those ride or die kind of wives and girlfriends. And I honestly didn't think that I would be divorced. I grew up Catholic, and you stayed married and you worked through it.
Hmm.
But I think we had about 5 years that I was talking to him about the concerns, going to therapy. I actually remember traveling with you guys, and I don't know if you remember this, before
Hmm.
it was even on my radar. And I remember Kevin saying to him, because he was very difficult on that trip,
Yeah.
he said to him, I think my question is when Denise is going to leave you, not if she's going to leave you.
Yeah.
And I was like, what are you talking? It wasn't even on my radar, but he must have saw something before I saw it. And I just continued to just kind of give it my all because, we had a child together. And, when you get married, you stay married and you
Yeah,
work.
you try to make it work.
Mm-hmm. And so when it came up in therapy that day, it was kind of like a trifecta. Three things had come up. I had a girlfriend whose husband was dying, and we went and stayed to watch their kids for the day. And one of the comments was, you care more about your friend's husband than me. And I'm like, well, as a human, we just care about others. And he's dying. One was that incident with the colleague. And it just was basically in that therapy session, I realized he was there for compliance, not really to work on it or be
Hmm.
open. He was going through the motions, but he wasn't really all in. And I think I needed very little for us to stand because I'll just preface it with we had a great friendship. Um, we both worked. I owned a home and money in the bank. We had a great physical connection. So a lot of people have these divorces and things like that. But when you feel like you're not supported and you're stifled and the jealousy is there and constant, it's overwhelming, especially as a mom. And
Yeah.
when you have a younger child and you're trying to go to work and you're taking care of your child and you're going to college and you don't really have any support, I think women sometimes emotionally they'll check out. Women
Yeah.
need that emotional fill, uh,
Hmm.
make sure they're feeling good.
My other question that you mentioned your child, do you think if you didn't have a child with this person, would the divorce had come sooner, or because you have a child, you waited longer?
Oh, it absolutely would have come sooner. And I think, and also my religion played into it. And I would say I've evolved in my religion because I grew up Catholic and I go to a Christian church now and I believe in God. And everyone's got different beliefs. But for
Mm.
me, it was kind of the way thinking, we're getting in this and we're in it till the wheels fall off. And, um, you know, we went through a lot and things happened and, I got your back no matter what. That's just my temperament. Um, and I don't know if I just got to a point in my mind that a light switch kind of changed. Life definitely changed after, but it wasn't something I really thought about divorce or premeditated at all. I just thought about how am I going to fix my marriage? And I'm a logical person. It just wasn't moving forward. It wasn't getting fixed. And like I said, I had family members that would comment on, some of the behaviors that were surrounding. Kevin had mentioned something. And I think sometimes you have the love goggles on and
Hmm.
it's like, we're going to fix this no matter what. We have a child together. And, I almost surprised myself that day when it just came out, was like, I just don't even want to try working on it anymore.
No.
Yeah, it's funny because I had mentioned this in an earlier episode, probably that some people, I tell people I tend to be a little bit too honest and sometimes brutally honest. And some people will say to me, "Oh, I love it when you're honest. I prefer people to be so honest and to just tell me the truth." And I always say, "Yeah, you're good with it until you're the person I have to be honest with." And I remember having that conversation with him, and he said, "No, no, no, that'll never happen. That'll never happen." I said, "Yeah, because I know at some point you're going to cut me off, because at some point I'm going to say something that you really don't want to hear or you're not ready to hear. And for me, I'd rather you tell me. I mean, I'm that friend. I'm like, it's gonna hurt, it's gonna suck. Maybe I'll even be mad at you
Mm.
just because, but then I'll step back and I go, crap, maybe I did need to hear it. And for me at least, I know as I've matured, um, I've I've learned to at least soften the blow, you know. But I did notice with him that he was not he was not evolving in your relationship. He definitely wasn't evolving. I mean, to the point that I remember when he told me that you had asked for the divorce and what he said to you. I don't know if you want to repeat that because I'm pretty sure you remember it verbatim. But he told me what he had said, and I was like, "What in the friggin' world are you saying?" Um, and you know, he just he would lash out, and he would lash out all the time. Not to me so much, but definitely to you. I noticed that. That's when I said it wasn't an if or it was more like a when it would happen.
And I think with him, when you love somebody and you meet somebody so young, and I'm an optimist. If you've got 10% good, I'm going to see that. And what I always say now and what I say to my son is, I'm looking for my partner, not a project. And, what is a healthy relationship? You're fully whole, they're fully whole, and you only add to each other's lives. Like, I don't need you financially. I don't need you to do something for me. We just coexist beautifully and we're there because we want to. And, I there was a lot that I added and did for our son, for our home. I was advancing. And, I understood some of the battles, and everybody has traumas when we grow up. And I think, I'm a big believer too in self help and personal development and therapy and reading. And how do you get better, right? Because
Mhm.
we don't choose the life we're given, but we determine how we're going to play the hand we're dealt, right? And one thing I'm not is, it's not a victim. And, I made that choice. And I will say, I so loved him. Even when I divorced him, I loved him. So that was a hard thing to do, to divorce somebody that you love. But I
Yeah.
really kind of understood how his childhood made him feel like he wasn't worthy of this good life, of this settled life. And he was really angry a lot. And I remember going to therapy, and they had said there was an assessment about different types of anger, and there was multiple types of anger, which I didn't even know was a thing. I just thought you're angry. And
Mm.
he had tested, he had every single one. That was one of the things that had come up.
Wow.
And I think I had also become very immune to his lashing out, his fits, if you will. I just kept my eye on the prize, right? Like raising my son, doing a protective bubble, going to work, getting my degree, and just kind of persevering like we're going to fix this until, my logic had to set in. And I just don't think this is, salvageable. You need two people that are in the game working. And I can be down and he could be down, but somebody's got to we each got to kind of put one foot ahead. And he definitely, I don't want to say he didn't want to, because I definitely felt like he didn't want to lose his family. I don't
Mm.
know if he was capable of that emotionally, or if maybe he just didn't want, I mean, I really don't know what he was thinking.
Mm.
Yeah, well, it sounds like I mean, not that it sounds like, but I certainly, from my point of view at least, I know he definitely lacked the emotional intelligence for
Mm.
it. It was more of a me, look at me, what happens to me. And he wasn't seeing the bigger picture.
Yeah. And it's like you said, you had the love goggles on, but then your self-preservation kicked in and you were like, nope.
Yeah,
And I'll tell you what really was the catalyst for me too. We had gone on vacation, and you'll probably remember this. We were up
I
in
remember.
New York, and I had gotten very sick, and I had gotten Bell's palsy, and they thought I was having a stroke, and I was young. And we ended up having to leave our trip in New York and come home early. So we ended up being here, and it was around a little bit before New Year's. We had been out of town, we hadn't gone grocery shopping, my son was young, I was very sick. I said, I just need you to go to the store and get a couple staples. And he
Mhm.
was like, nope, I can't do that. He just kind of went to bed, like he was depressed. My son had bronchial pneumonia.
Yes.
I had the paralyzed face. I was driving my son to the doctor. He was in bed. He got up, played video games. And it was probably about 3 to 4 days of this. And then he finally kind of snapped out of it. And I remember thinking in my head, if something happened to me or I passed away, would my son be okay? And
Mhm.
how would my son live, and what would the quality of my son's life be? And that was the driving force, really, that made me say I love him, more than life itself, and I need to do what's hard, to ensure that he doesn't grow up in a home that's toxic, because I'd rather us be in two different homes and both love him and him not see arguments or anger, and that way he'd have a shot at breaking that generational trauma and those curses that
Mhm.
happen in families when people decide to just kind of be a product of their environment.
Yeah, I was thinking about that when we were bringing up this topic for this episode, and um a friend of mine, she's still going through stuff, and I told her, listen, and she would use her child as an excuse. Why not? Why she didn't want to get divorced and why she didn't want to leave her husband. And I told her, you do realize that it would be better for her if you're both happy and apart than together and miserable. It's not good for her for the future. And unfortunately, she's still with the guy, and the daughter just left, and she like doesn't even want to deal with the situation.
Mhm.
And she even told her, "You could go, we could leave. It's
When
over."
she became an adult, well,
Yeah, and then
when
when
she
she went
became
to
a
college, she
teenager,
goes, "Listen, don't
yeah.
use me as an excuse." Because even the daughter knew. She goes, "Don't use me as an excuse. Leave. I'm good. I'm okay." She never did, and it's sad, And I'm glad you were smart enough to just,
Well, you're brave. You were brave enough.
yes,
You
brave
know
as
what I
enough
mean?
word.
Because it's not that, I mean, you weren't that young a mom, but you were young enough that, it's still to have to say to yourself, you know what, enough is enough.
Mm-hmm.
I can't take that chance. And and just so everyone knows, it's, I haven't seen your son lately, but I have spoken to him a couple times online, just to check in with him, especially lately.
Great
I've
job,
done it.
Mom. He's awesome.
And I mean, the kid, and I call him a kid only because, for me, he's still the kid. He's only a year older than ours. And but you could already see the maturity's already developed.
Mm-hmm.
You could already see that he's like, nope, not in a rush to get into a relationship. I'm good. I need to get things settled for myself first. And clearly he's gotten that from you.
Yeah.
At least now, and he's seen certain things that have happened in the past, and he's like, nope, I don't want that right now.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I never want it, I just don't want it now.
Yeah.
And I mean, you could see he's a respectful kid. He always was, at least to me, he was.
Yeah.
I mean, if not, I would have beaten his behind. Yeah.
And, my other question I was going to ask you, when you decided to get the divorce, did you have support from like family and friends or?
That's a great question. I really kind of kept quiet on a lot of things, because there were some things that he did that just really weren't nice, emotionally, financially. And even though I left him, I wanted to protect him in certain ways because that was still my son's dad.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really kind of suffered in silence, if that makes sense. And I kept my nose to the grind. Now, did I have people, if I would have asked for anything, absolutely would have come. My nature is not a woe is me person ever. And I also feel like, we make choices in life and then there's consequences. So I would say not so much. I didn't even really share some of the honest details with my dad and my brothers for a few years later because I felt like had I done that, they would have wanted to just naturally protect me. And again, that's my son's dad. And even though he wasn't doing what's right or acting right, I always wanted to protect that relationship and, respect him as the father of my son and be grateful for giving me the best gift in my life.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, while I was researching this, that as far as divorce is concerned, right? So, they're saying, as always, there's stages because there's stages of of anything, of a death, of a passing, and almost it is almost like a passing. There's a passing of a relationship, right? And it was just like, so they, at least the one that I first saw, was there was 5 stages of it, and they were saying that there was denial or shock. I think that was probably more on his side, as well as anger. And I don't know if that was on both of you or not. Um, Depression, bargaining, and then acceptance. And
I don't think he's got over.
I was gonna say, I don't know if that last one still has occurred 14 years later. But I know, because I know the bargaining still was happening.
Mhm.
But can you,
It's funny that the research says that, and I've done a lot of work because I used to tell people close to me I was like grieving the dream of what you project is going to be. And I don't know that men necessarily do this, but I can just speak for women and myself. I think when we get married, we put a picture in our mind, of this family and this unit and our dreams, and it's like the dream that I kind of painted in my head, I grieve that. But I also think, and I do think this is typical of women more than men, we start that process, I think, sometimes while we're in the relationship and we're deciding if we're going towards divorce. Because I think women will say, I'm feeling this way. Like, we tend to talk a lot about our feelings, right? Where I don't know if they're hearing, how you're feeling, but I certainly, I think, was starting to let go during that 5 years that I was working on it. And one of the things I said to him, I had dated him since I was 17. I never looked at another boy, I never kissed another boy. He I had a child, your body changes. He had put on weight. I never looked at other men. I so loved this man. And I never, if a man would compliment me, I would just ignore. I never cared. And I remember one day towards the end, somebody had given me a compliment, which was not even a great one. And I remember being like, oh, so excited about it. But I came home and I said, we should talk about that because I shouldn't be so giddy that some random person,
Yeah.
instead of even hearing that as a wow, you're being vulnerable and you're talking, it was, like, F this guy, don't let anyone talk. He was very aggressive towards anyone that would talk to me. So, that was just kind of awakening too about, grieving it and, acceptance, even for me, that, wow, we're not, the saddest part to me is that I'm such a big believer in the co-parenting, and we were friends for so long, and I thought he was great,
Mhm.
and I just feel like even now at this phase of my life, gosh, I would love to be able to, when our son gets married, really just enjoy that, like, or when he has a child. And, I don't know if he's capable. I'm always hopeful. I'm always polite. Like, my son plays football in college. At every game, I say, hi, how are you? He ignores me. So, we definitely have some growth in that area, but, I'm always hopeful for my son. But you do grieve it. You do grieve the dream, and everyone gets to their destination at a different time.
Oh, that's wonderful. My other question was, and I think you answered it, so maybe I shouldn't. But like, I know for fact, it's funny because Kevin and I, or at least I say, like, if God forbid so and so ever gets divorced, she's mine, or he's, they're on my side. When you guys got divorced, I know, like, for instance, he was on his friend or whatever, but of course we're with you. Um, how did you guys divvy up the friends and family thing? How did that go about?
Well, I'm going to be honest. Like, I think most people kind of naturally gravitated because he was a little angry bird. So, right away, his grandparents really raised him, his grandmother especially. And I grew up in their home. I was so close to them. And I remember I was most scared of telling them. And I actually told them on my birthday, and I went over there. And the first thing the grandmother said was, what did he do wrong? I'm going to have his, what, this is unacceptable. This is his fault. And I remember saying, please
Wow.
do that because you are the most important person in his life. And I don't want him to feel like he doesn't have a lifeline. So, my family, again, I was very tight lipped. I was very minimal because I wanted to protect and I didn't want anyone to think bad of him. And even in a situation where I could tell it was frustrating for him that I maintained a relationship, I remember telling you guys, listen, I will always be here for your son, but if you need me to kind of hide in the shadows or be more low key, I will do whatever's better because I didn't want to damage that. So I was very mindful of that. He did not have a lot of close friends. I think part of it, he was a little off putting. He was a little bit, angry. He pushed people away. Um, his family always were very supportive of me. His mom struggled a little bit, but because he could be a bit much, and I think she was nervous. His cousins that were close were always very good to me. So I didn't feel like I lost anybody, and I don't think you really lose people that matter and you matter to them. I don't think you can lose them. And if people fall out of your life, I think it's okay. I got a girlfriend going through a divorce right now, and she texted me this week and says, I'm really sad. I've known these people for 15 years, and it's like
Yeah.
they act like they don't know me. And I said
Yeah.
that is sad because I think just because a marriage doesn't work, it doesn't mean you should lose those relationships that you've built
Mhm.
over 10, 15, 20 years. I mean, but I'm also a big believer in let everybody do what they want to do. And I'm not gonna, please support me. Please, you know what? That's okay. And I don't judge it. And if it's meant to be, it's gonna circle its way back to you. It's that healthy detachment and you just got to be okay with it, even if it's bizarre. It's like, all right.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I could imagine, God forbid, if we ever get divorced. Um, I said, God forbid, relax. That's, it's like, I hope it doesn't get to the point like you can't talk to them because you're with me, or, I mean, we could share our friends, and unfortunately, in your case, that didn't happen because,
Well, I mean, let's be honest, at the time, I knew this too. He was very distrustful of a lot of people. He always felt he always felt like, someone was going to do something, or no, I don't trust them because, for whatever reason. He was very paranoid when it came to that. Um and I remember even in the wedding when, yeah, because I was in the wedding and I was like, there's not many friends of yours here. What's going on? And because it was mostly your side, I want to say, other than his family. And he wasn't exactly close to his family either, other than the grandparents and sort of the mom and the cousins, because he had an uncle that, oh gosh, he just did not want to deal with. He did,
Mhm.
and those kids he didn't really want to deal with either. So yes, he was very distrustful. I
Mhm.
mean, just in general, whatever reason they may have been, but he couldn't let things go either. He
Yeah,
really could not let things go.
yeah.
Um, and then
I think
again,
that's how you guys balanced each other out.
yeah,
Right.
you were a little more carefree. You were a little more, okay, yeah, it's messed up, but
She's still trying
Yeah.
to say something.
He used to say, "You live in a Disney movie." And I used to say, "But I like it here." And, and I definitely gravitated towards, he had a little bit more street smarts. And, in all fairness, there was times, he'd be like, "Don't go there. They're up to no good." And I'd be like, "No, no." And then sure enough, something would go down. Or Denise, that one's having an affair. I'd be like, "Oh my God, no." And he was always right. So I do think we balanced and I think it
Hmm.
really worked. And I think had he been able to evolve, I think, if we don't work through our childhood traumas, boy, we could be a slave to that. And it
Yes.
does impact your happiness. And I'm somebody that I just want to live my life and be happy. And, I love my husband and I love my kid. And I felt like it was unnecessary, for that to happen. But in hindsight, when I look at him 14, almost 15 years later, and I see that he's still angry and I see that he's still holding burdens. And, I've gone back to school and gotten another degree and I've had 2 promotions and I've traveled the world and not to say that that's because I got divorced, but because I continue to see the good and try to set goals and work on things. And, we only have one life, so we
Yes.
can't be miserable. And if we're not happy with someone, we don't have to be with them. If we don't like a job, we don't have to be there. So I just think it's so important to live this really great, authentic life. And I authentically love this man. And I think what was hard for him was that he knew my love was so pure. And I think the fact that he did not want to lose it, but he never understood. Maybe he does understand. I don't know that he's the one that did that. So I don't know. You know, I really, sometimes I'd love to get into that brain of his and wonder what the heck was he thinking. But
Well, I think we have so many more questions, and I think we should stretch this out to part 2, if you don't mind.
sure.
Yeah, we could do this later on. It's
Yeah,
not
because we're getting a little reminder here that we only have a few minutes remaining, because we're not going to splurge to upgrade for Zoom. So, but we have so many more questions, and I just want to say I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule, and we definitely want a part 2. Yep.
So thank you for listening to Kev.
And Lil,
Have we met? And here's hoping you have better relationships in your life. Goodbye.
Goodbye.